Welcome everybody to our very first Spooktober book report. So, Steph, I have to let you know this is like our third. Oh, I'm sorry. Before I get into this, I'm doing this book report with Stephanie. She's been here before. I hope you guys. Yeah, she's been here before. She's been here for a lot. So yes, welcome back, Stephanie. It's been a long time.
Thanks.
Right. Um, be careful of making moves because Patrick will definitely clip this and make it a GIF.
Oh, he's already got a gif of me dancing.
Right.
Yeah, that exists.
I'm not gonna say anything about Windows in this episode because that is forever. I still hate that that's a GIF and that's a thing in real life because they see that in real time. Oh, that's the gift that gives keeps on
So I
giving.
would I would spin this not as a book report and more as a book club
Oh yeah,
because we
book
haven't
club.
gotten to the end yet, so we're
Right.
not giving a report. We're giving live semi-live reactions.
Yeah, semi live reactions of
Yeah.
our read through. Well, my first read through and your second.
This is my second.
Right.
So let me set the scene of how this book came into our lives.
Right. Let's do that.
Okay. So we're talking about The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. So last year, my husband James, who he's been here before, some of you probably know who he is.
Yes.
He was scrolling Facebook, and one of his friends posted about this book, and she said, "I've literally never read anything like this." And this is a woman who reads like 200 books a year. So he took that very seriously, and he did no further investigation and bought the book, and then read it. And then like every night, he was like, "When are you going to read this book? When are you going to read this book? I need you to read this book ASAP. Please read this book. I need somebody to talk about this book with." So I read the book. And while I was reading the book, I was like, "You need to answer my questions." And he was like, "No, you need to finish the book and then we'll talk about the book." So that's how it came about. I absolutely love it. I love it so much that I plan to read it every October until my book falls apart. Like it's so good. It's such October vibes. It's a mystery, it's a thriller, it's spooky. It's so spooky. So Mo wanted to do a cast, and he knows I'm super into books, and so I recommended this book because I was going to be reading it anyway, and I knew that he would love it. So that's how we got to where we are now.
Right. But can we there's something you said when you said you were reading it and you said to James and he was asking him, he had to answer all your questions. To be very honest, if you haven't read this book or if you know someone that has read the book, 100% you're going to be asking them to answer your questions. And if they're like James and like Stephanie, they're not going to answer your questions. They're going to laugh.
A good friend will not answer questions while you're reading this book.
Oh my God, because you will have a ton.
Yeah. So that said, also, if this book is on your TBR and you just haven't gotten to it yet, this is one of those books that like is best read with as little information ahead of time.
Right.
So while I don't want to like discourage people from watching us,
Right.
There's no way to talk about this book without spoiling the book, and I want you to go in untarnished. So consider that. Maybe come back to this later.
Right. So yes, this is your spoiler warning right here. Thank you very much, Steph. So yeah.
Oh, sorry. One other thing. Sorry.
Go ahead.
So in the U.S., the title is 7.5 Deaths. If you're elsewhere in the world, it's probably the 7 Deaths, and that can be confusing. It's the same book. But what happened is the 7 husbands of Evelyn, it's another H name. It's like Evelyn Hugo, released the same year and got really, really famous. And so when they released the book in the US, they shifted the title just a little bit to make it more distinguishable from that other book.
Right.
I don't know that it worked too well because it's still Evelyn H. Whatever. But so if you live across the pond and you are looking for this book, it's just the 7 Deaths, not the 7.5.
Gotcha. All right. So spoiler warning, title warning. Wow, this is a lot of warnings. But no. So Stephanie, your first since you've read this twice, what is your impression? Like going back into the book the second time, like I'm like, I know you're like super excited to go back into it the second time.
Yeah.
How did it feel going back, like reading, like starting your read through again?
It was so also format wise, we've broken the book up into 4 parts. So we've just done the first part, and we're gonna do a cast for each part. So we're about 70 pages into the book this go around. I really enjoyed the second reading. I was assuming that, and I think this is gonna be true. Like any mystery thriller, um, you catch things the more times you watch or read or consume that content. And so that's part of the reason that I wanted to reread it, just to see what else I didn't catch the first time. But something that really struck me this time is I was so engrossed in like the questions and like what is happening that I kind of missed how beautiful the writing is the first time. Stuart Turton is he's got some beautiful prose in this book, and I definitely missed it last time because I was just eager to figure out what was happening. So it's been really nice to go a little bit slower, knowing the answers to most of the questions and being able to just absorb the writing itself.
That is actually super interesting because I'm reading this currently right now for answers. Because as soon as you open the book, like there's the yes, the very first page leads to a question. Like
Yeah.
it's a who question. It's a what. Like it's a who, what, and where. It's and to your point about the writing. The writing is amazing, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot of good. It's a lot of cheatiness in the writing. But honestly, as soon as you open the book, the first couple lines you read, you're not checking for the writing. You're asking questions immediately.
Yeah.
So I feel
So
like you're gonna say something, and I feel like I'm always gonna be counter to it. And it's not like a bad thing per se. It's just the fact that this is my experience now, right?
yeah, yeah.
You've kind of already experienced what I've experienced. So I'm gonna always ask you about the second read through.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I want to read a couple quotes that I highlighted. And these are just in chapter 1, so it's not too much of a reveal if you haven't clicked away yet and you're planning on reading this book. So chapter 1, our MC wakes up with amnesia, and he's talking about how he doesn't remember anything, and so one of the lines on page 2, so this is like super early, is one by one I knit these new memories together until I've got 5 minutes of past to wrap myself in. It's enough to stanch the panic, at least for now. Which is like, I don't know, that like hit me really hard about like you have no idea where you are, how you got there, and so you just need to like build your memory so that you have something tangible to move forward with. And then just 2 pages later, I'm not going to explain this quote, but how lost do you have to be to let the devil lead you home? This lost, I decide. Precisely this lost. Spooky. So
That
spooky.
is super spooky,
Yeah.
and that is actually really good. Like hearing those lines again. To be very honest, it's like whoa, okay, weaving. One by one, I'm weaving like my memory and all that stuff. But it still doesn't count. Like knowing the rest of the book, right? Knowing the rest. So okay, earlier we did say we broke down our chapter. Wish I could blow that up. But yeah, we broke down our chapter. So we're gonna be doing first 9 chapters right now. So
Mhm.
72 pages. Yeah. Okay. So, but just knowing the rest of it, and that line is really important, like weaving the memories, right? But knowing the rest of the book and knowing know how it shapes up is a good line that to me it when things start to come together for our main character, right? When certain things start to come together for our main character, I go back to that line and I'm like, did you really, knowing what you know, like I know you're back here saying I wish I could forget, because I think it comes up again where he also says, right, like I wish, like no, not to him, not actually comes, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but there's something that happens in the future, right? And he is so sick by what he learns. Like
Mhm.
I felt him like just like sick of it, and I thought that was delicious when we got there. So I'm not gonna
Yeah.
get too far ahead. So we are in
Let's
chapter 1.
let's let's backtrack. We got
Yes.
my initial thoughts on a reread. What are your initial thoughts on your first read?
Oh my god! Like first of all, I feel like the main character right now. Like where am I? What have you like? I really wanted to text you and be like, what have you dropped me into? Because it starts super like what? Like what's going on? I don't know what's going on. I can't like and so I'm flipping pages, right? I'm like, okay, I have to find out. And I think it's the first four chapters, and you don't like the writer Stewart has done so well to like keep you so into this, not tell you what's happening for like another five chapters. So you're in this book in the first four chapters.
Yeah, you don't really, I feel like you don't get a sense for what's actually happening until page 67.
Yes.
Um, so well, it's kind of hinted at because the first chapter starts, it's just chapter 1, day 1. And then chapter 10 or chapter 9 is when you get to day 2. And it's not until the day 2 that you start to actually get a sense for what the format of the plot is, which is excellent, which we haven't like summarized the plot. And now we're dancing around spoilers, even though we said that this was a very spoilery
We
chat.
really are because it's so delicious. Like, why would you want to spoil it for anyone, right? But
Yeah.
so let me do the plot because I read the back of the book. I'm gonna confess, I read the back of the book for a whole week because I'm trying to find things. Because Stephanie's like, I'm like, no, we're gonna start this on the October 1st. So confession, I started at 9 o'clock.
You cheated. Absolutely, you cheated.
Is it really a cheat? Because
it's 5 o'clock somewhere does not mean it's an appropriate time to drink a martini.
It's midnight on the East Coast.
It's fine. It's fine.
So, but no, Evelyn. So the rules of Blackheath. Evelyn Hardcastle will be murdered at 11 p.m. There's 8 days and 8 witnesses for you to inhabit. We will only let you escape once you tell us the name of the killer. Understood? Then let's begin. Honestly, knowing what I know now, I feel so. I do feel kind of slow because it's right in your face.
Yeah, so the second part of the summary is Evan Hardcastle will die every day until Aidan Bishop can identify her killer and break the cycle. But every time the day begins again, Aidan wakes up in the body of a different guest, and some of his hosts are more helpful than others. So it's because I read the back too, and I am like I try to be really intentional with the content that I read, so I always check for like content warnings, trigger warnings, those kinds of things. So I knew that like this was a little gritty, and I knew the back, but it didn't. It's once you start reading day 1, you're like, what is happening? Like you immediately forget what the back of the book tells you, which is that this is not Sebastian Bell. This is Aidan Bishop in Sebastian Bell's body experiencing the day as Sebastian Bell did, and you immediately forget that. And then you just struggle for the rest of the book.
And you struggle for the first 10 chapters.
But so the basic plot or the basic premise is that Aidan Bishop has to solve the murder, and he has 8 days and 8 bodies in which to do it. So every day he inhabits a different guest, and experiences the day through that guest's experiences, and then has to solve the murder based on what he experiences through these 8 different perspectives. So day 1, he inhabits Sebastian Bell, who is a cowardly doctor. And then day 2, he becomes the doorman. And we haven't read too much into that, so we don't know a whole lot about the doorman.
Right. But what we do know about the doorman is he does get his ass kicked, like really bad, really bad. And currently, but actually,
let's focus on day 1 first. We'll talk about the doorman.
Oh my god! Something just hit me. I'm like, really? I'm sorry, because this is fantastic because like I should know. Okay, back to the summary. Just like you, I read and read. I'm like, okay, I'm so ready for this. But as soon as you start chapter 1, the first line, the first paragraph, and you're like, you forget. And so like that's why I said just reading the back, I'm like, it's in your face. Like, how did I miss all of this? But then the book is so interesting that you do legitimately forget all of the dealings.
Yeah, he does such a good job of writing distress that you are pulled into the distress with Aidan Bishop as Sebastian Bell, that you forget what you know, which also like feels really apt because there's so much stuff that Sebastian Bell is supposed to know, but he doesn't. It
Yes.
puts you in, he puts you in the same mind frame.
Right. So so book starts. Sebastian Bell. You wake up, or he stumbles up, right? Because he was attacked. He stumbles up, very
In
confused
the
as to where he
forest.
is. Yes, in the forest, very confused as to where he is. Sees two figures running away in the distance. Hears a gunshot. I'm just jumping through it. I'm not necessarily going. Here's a
Yeah.
gunshot. D- Thinks, and then this was the funniest part to me because he goes, should I, when he gets up and he sees the two figures running, he goes, should I give chase or should I chase? Like, and then does he second guesses it, but he finally decides to, and then he hears the gunshot and he starts to go in on himself. Like, I should have gone earlier. I could have saved a life. Let's go see what's happening. And then he goes, he sees the body, and then some other figure comes behind him and goes, "This is gonna, what to say? This is gonna save your
He
life."
just says east.
Yes, head east, and
Yeah.
drops a watch in his not a
A
watch, a comp
compass.
in his pocket, and I thought that was super good.
Super
Like,
creepy. Also, he wakes up with the name Anna.
mhm.
Like he's saying the name Anna, and so he assumes that the woman running is Anna. But he doesn't know who Anna is. What did you just realize?
It's fine. It's fine.
This is
Oh
the
my
place
god!
to discuss your revelations. So
Hold
what was
on,
your
hold on.
revelation?
It wasn't Anna. There's no Anna. There's no Anna. That was Evelyn.
I have a Google Doc with my questions for you, so I'm gonna write that down there.
Oh my gosh. I knew Anna wasn't real. But go ahead, keep going. I knew it. I knew it.
Anyway, so he wakes up. He knows that he should be looking for Anna. He sees two figures, one of which is feminine, running away from him. He pauses, then he gives chase. Then there's a gunshot. He does beat himself up for that 30-second delay because he thinks that 30-second delay would have made the difference. Then he can't find the body. The murderer slips a compass in his pocket and tells him to go east. He's terrified. He's stumbling through the forest. We get to that line about, do you trust the devil to lead you? Like, how desperate do you have to be? This desperate. And so then he follows the compass and he makes it back to the manor. And then what happens, Mo?
Oh my god, my brain. So he knows, right? And obviously, I think because they're busy, no one really hears what's going on. No, the butler opens the door. Oh no, he stumbles in and catches it. And
No, he rings the bell and the doorman comes and opens it for him.
Okay. He goes in and I think the guy's like, "Oh my god, my good sir." I'm just because when I was reading this, I was like, what time period are we in?
Yeah. You're like, are there top hats involved?
I feel like there are top hats involved, and everyone says my good sir, like my good man, old boy, young chap. That's how they talk. And he goes, "My good sir, what are you doing out here?" And immediately pulls Sebastian in, takes him upstairs, and Sebastian, I think he repeats the name like Anna, like something happened out there.
Well, so the doorman lets him in, and while he's urging the doorman to call the police, another man comes down the top of the stairs and calls to him. We later learn that this guy's name is Daniel Coolidge, and he leads him up into his room, and the doorman disappears.
Okay, so Daniel takes him up to his room, and is like, "Hey, like, let me get you together, and we'll get the doctor, and we'll get the cops. So everything okay? There's a woman out there dead. Name is Anna. Like, oh my god, just help me." And he's like, "Let's get you together. Let's get you cleaned out because you look a mess. We'll get the doctor, and once we get you together, we'll come down and I'll ask. What I'm gonna do is when I leave you here, I'm gonna go ask anyone if they know who Anna is. We're gonna find out for you. Okay, just relax." Lets him in.
Get cleaned up, get changed.
Right, and then Sebastian starts looking around. Okay, this is my. It doesn't feel like I've been here before. He's looking around. He's trying to figure things out. Trying to find his clothes. He's just trying to. Again, this is someone who has amnesia. He's trying to figure himself out, and why he's where he's at. And I think that is really important moving forward because this is going to happen a lot, right? So
Yeah, Daniel also stresses like how much Sebastian's like confusion and his accusations of murder like is gonna stir the servants to like gossip and like the rumor mill. So like we really need to keep this out of the public spaces. We need to have these conversations privately, which is like
correct.
always sus, right? Anytime somebody is like, let's not discuss murder in front of other people.
That is us.
But there's another great line here describing Daniel's voice. It's described as his voice is low enough to scoop off the floor.
It's Daniel. It's Daniel. I'm just gonna say it right now, right here. It's Daniel.
What's Daniel?
I'm calling it right now, right here. Daniel is our guy.
Okay, I'm gonna write that down. Daniel is our guy.
This is gonna come back later to bite me in the butt. I just know it.
Okay, so
you're
Sebastian.
Not gonna answer the question.
What?
You're not gonna. Is Daniel our guy?
Why would I answer that question on week 1?
I thought. Never mind.
Do you think so lowly of me? Okay, so Sebastian takes stock of the room. There's a heavily annotated Bible that he doesn't recognize. There's like no other personal effects. There's a chest, like a luggage chest that is locked but is very heavy that he can't find the key to. The clothes are drab. They're all like black and gray suits. And there's like nothing else in the room. So he takes a bath. He gets cleaned up. He finally gets or the doctor comes to see him. Dickie. And the doctor discovers that Sebastian's arm is totally scratched up. And Dickie kind of deduces that somebody attacked Sebastian last night and like stabbed his arm and like repeatedly slashed down his arm. But Sebastian doesn't remember that, and he doesn't understand what's happening.
I think that conversation is really important because it sets up Sebastian's mind now, right? Okay, this is what happens to me. What happened to me? Now I need to find out, So Blackheath is dangerous for me, right? So I have to leave. I think that's one of the things.
Yeah.
I think Daniel put that out there. It's like, okay, we'll
what is happening?
Nothing. Oh, that's drunk. That's one of our like avid viewers. Like he watches a lot of what we do on here. So thank you very much.
We're reading books.
Yeah, we're reading everything here, man. So yeah, Daniel, I think, puts it out there that, hey, you know what, we're gonna get you out of here, right? We'll get the cops, and next thing is to get you out of here because, and this, I think that happened before Dickie's assessment of Sebastian. Like, so now this puts terror into the mind of Sebastian. Like, okay, there is someone out here for me, and not just I've also failed Anna, right? If I don't find her murder, I failed her. But then I'm gonna run. At the end of the day, what I'm gonna do is run. And it sets up an interesting conversation when they get to the what would you call it, the parlor,
the lunchroom.
Yeah, the lunchroom. I think this is where
yes. This book is so good. It's so worth it.
Really good. You definitely want to read it.
Here's another little piece of prose. So Sebastian finally gets a look at himself in a mirror, and he describes himself as, I'm any face in a crowd, just the Lord's way of filling in the gaps. What a poignant way to say I am as average as possible.
Yeah, average looking guy. Like, ouch. That's not a way to talk about yourself, Sebastian. Get some confidence. But no, it's kind of established that Sebastian is kind of a punk, like from jump, right?
He's a coward. Yes. He's cowardly.
We get to the lunchroom, and two things happen. The first thing that happens is the maid gets accosted by this guy, right? Who got a promotion because he helped solve Did he help solve? Yes, right. He helped
No,
solve.
he attempted to intervene. So okay, so let's give some context to Blackheath. These are things that you discover within the first 72 pages, right? So
Right.
Blackheath is owned by the Hardcastles, Evelyn of which is the daughter. They're throwing a masquerade to celebrate Evelyn's return from Paris, which we find out she has been in Paris for the last 19 years.
19 years.
And 19 years ago, so there are three Hardcastle children, Evelyn, Michael, and Thomas. 19 years ago, Thomas was murdered by, is it Charles Coleridge?
Mm-hmm.
I'm forgetting his name exactly, but anyway, as a young child, he's murdered on the property. And this guy, what is his name? Stanton?
Ted
Stanwin.
Stanwin. Yeah.
Ted Stanwin, a maid addresses him by his first name, and Ted Stanwin loses his mind and reams her out for addressing him so informally, even though they like grew up together and she's known him her entire life and they used to be equals. But because he intervened in the murder of the child and he like helped the family during that time, they gave him an estate and now he's like not a common person anymore. Basically, we just in a very brief interaction, we learn three things. We learn Sebastian Bell is an absolute coward as he watches this poor girl get humiliated and he does nothing to help her. We learn that Ted Stanwin is a dick. And third, we learn that Daniel has authority in the house, because he comes in and reprimands Ted and everyone like stops and listens to him, including Stanwin.
I thought that was really good. Again, you've seen like Daniel is not just because I think it's that he's a worker, right? He's not necessarily, is he?
Yeah, so there's an invitation at the beginning of the book, which I referred back to all the time. The notable guests kind of list their profession. So Daniel Coleridge is a professional gambler, but we don't really know like his relationship to the family.
Right, because that's interesting because I would have thought he was a worker. I would have thought the way he moved in the beginning or helping Sebastian, and it looked like he was one of the higher level, like one of the higher level butlers or something.
Daniel asserts a lot of control in the situation, which doesn't totally make sense, right? Like when Sebastian gets back to the house initially, like Daniel is the one to collect him and calm him and kind of give him direction and where to go. And he also says that like, so the men of the house were going to go hunting anyway. And so Daniel asserts like, you just tell me where you think the body is and I will make sure the hunting party goes there, which is weird. Like it's weird that he has the authority to be able to control where the hunting party goes. And then he reprimands a notable guest and like, it's interesting. Like I said, the authority that Daniel asserts into these situations. And it kind of just, especially knowing he's a professional gambler, like what's actually going on that he can do that.
Right. But we meet Ted. We meet Ted, and there's another notable we meet. I think it's Michael. Is it Michael?
What?
The brother. Evelyn's
Michael.
Brother. Yeah,
Michael.
So we meet Ted.
Yeah, so after he cleans up, Daniel takes him to Michael because Michael is the one who Sebastian was drinking with last night. So they're hoping that Michael can shed some light on what happened that led to Sebastian waking up in the forest. And we find out that, Michael and Sebastian are like old friends. They were drinking together last night. And Michael is just like this really like silly, affable, like kind of a stereotypical like ditzy, like he's a himbo rich kid, like whatever. He dresses gaily, and I mean that like flamboyantly gaily, and is like super happy in the middle of this super depressing house. And it's very strange.
And I think it's also set because he's so aloof, right? He doesn't know anything. Like I think it's set up later that Michael is just very like aloof. He doesn't know what's going on, and like when Evelyn I think starts. Let's not get there. We're gonna get there. So the hunting party thing happens. Okay, we're gonna go hunt. They asked is invited, and he goes, "No, I'm not going." The next thing that happens is a bird flies into a window.
Whoa! Two things. Right? Two things happen. right? So it's not just the bird. Sorry, Michael does reveal something important before we move past Michael. So they were eating dinner and drinking, and Michael says that a maid brought a note to Sebastian. And as soon as he got the note, he got up and left, but Michael doesn't know what happened to him after that. So then Daniel says that he's going to go try to figure out which maid was the one that gave him the note.
Right. So that's what Daniel decides to do. Right.
Yeah. They also, that's where Sebastian is explained, that Carver is the one, he like tells them about Thomas's murder and Stanwin's intervention and all that kind of stuff. So that's where you learn about that context. So then he's left alone. And then this is where he's... Yeah, so Daniel and Michael go about their business. Sebastian is like watching out of a window, watching the hunting party leave. And he's trying to figure out where the stable is, like in context to the property. And as he turns around, I turn for the drawing room only to find the doorway blocked by a huge black crow. My heart leaps, and so do I, straight into the sideboard, sending family photographs and trinkets clattering to the floor. You don't need to be afraid, says the creature, taking a half step out of the gloom. It's not a bird at all. It's a man dressed as a medieval plague doctor, his feathers a black greatcoat, the beak belonging to a porcelain mask, glinting in the light of a nearby lamp. Presumably this is his costume for the ball tonight, though that doesn't explain why he's wearing such sinister garb in the middle of the day. I feel like this is the moment when the book takes like a really spooky turn. Super spooky turn. And then while they're talking, a bird smacks into the window and kills itself. And like it hits the window with such force that it kills itself. This was one of my favorite things that because Mo was sending me like live reactions, his like live questions. And he was like, it's never good when a bird's involved.
It's never good. Like, give me one time. Just give me one time where a bird flies into a window in any horror movie and the next thing that happens is good. It's never good. It's never good.
It's never good. So Sebastian is confused. The plague doctor asks him, like, what did you bring with you? Which is a super weird left field question. Eventually, Sebastian, he clarifies, like, what were you saying when you woke up? Sebastian says, Anna. And the plague doctor goes, that's a pity. And Sebastian's like, do you know who Anna is? And he dodges the question. And he kind of gives this like really cryptic warning. He says like, we'll have to do work before long, but not today, not while you're in this state. And then this is where the back of the book comes back in. We kind of get that summary again from the plague doctor. He says, we'll have to work to do before long, but not today and not while you're in this state. We'll speak again soon when everything's a little clearer. In the meantime, I'll advise you to acquaint yourself with Blackheath and your fellow guests. Enjoy yourself while you can, doctor. The footman will find you soon.
Oh my God.
Sebastian asks him, like, who is the footman? Is he responsible for Anna's murder or attacking me? The plague doctor says, I doubt it, or I very much doubt it. The footman isn't going to stop with your arm. And then that's when the bird smacks into the window. Sebastian looks at the bird and then he turns back and the plague doctor's gone.
Yes. Everything is just hitting me right now. Everything. Like, okay, I'll say this, right?
Walk us through that.
Okay, so one thing, I was like, again, Anna is not real, right? Anna is not real. Or at least she's not real in this context, in this situation. Anna is probably someone he knows. What's his name again? Anna is someone
Aidan Bishop.
Aidan Bishop knows, right? So this is someone Aidan Bishop knows, and he was probably with Anna or saying something to Anna and then wakes up in this state, and that's why Anna exists. So Anna's not real. Everything that the plague doctor said here, like literally should have jogged my memory after reading the back and you read what this says. It's like, get acquainted with the guests. We have work to do. And I'm like, it's just hitting me. Like, he's telling us, right? This is another thing, right? But it's so good that it's buried here. I'm not going to say maybe buried is not the right word. It's just snuck in, right?
Yeah, one thing that I noticed, to your question in the beginning of like, what was it back to start reading it as a second time? There is so much foreshadowing in this book that you cannot know is foreshadowing until you know what happens.
Right. Right.
There are a lot
100%.
of things that like have stood out to me that I'm specifically not pointing out because it is deliberate foreshadowing.
Spoiler.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I feel like we should do
It's
a
so
book
good.
report.
Stuart Turton is a phenomenal writer.
I feel like we should do a book report. Like when this is done, we should come
Go
back
back through
around.
it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I would because I would want to know those things,
yeah.
and I would want to see if I
This
can
book is
match.
worth a reread for
Yeah,
sure.
I
I don't
want to see if I
reread a
can.
lot of books. This is one of those books that like is a really good reread.
Right. So, Sebastian together goes outside to he says this is one thing I thought was pretty cool about Sebastian. He's like, you know what? I'm gonna bury this bird, right?
Yeah.
No matter like this bird deserves to go.
I'm a coward, but I'm going to do one thing. So odd.
Right. And so he buries the bird and then he heads towards the stables. He gets to the stables and
The
so
house is
when he
empty.
gets it, it's empty. He calls out, no one
And it's
answers.
and it's like freshly empty, right? Like the fire is still
Right.
going, the food is
Still
still kind
going,
of
the food is still
warm.
warm. Yeah, he takes his glove off, hangs it over the on a rod over the fire, and that's when he touches the food. The food is warm. He goes into what's he do? Then he goes to check the records. He goes to check the logs,
There's
right?
like a clipboard and he takes
Yeah,
the clipboard down so that he can write a note to the stable master. And what does he find when
a
he
note
takes down
to
the piece of paper?
him.
Right.
Love Anna.
So he finds a note. Here's the note. It says, "Don't leave Blackheath. More lives than your own are depending on you. Meet me by the mausoleum in the family graveyard at 10:20 p.m. and I'll explain everything. Oh, and don't forget your gloves. They're burning. Love, Anna."
Wait a minute. Hold on. Anna's real. Anna's real. Okay, hear me out. Hear me out.
Which is it, Mo? Which is it?
Okay. No. Anna is real now. She's real. Anna is, but then she knows about
Well,
the
so while
gloves,
Mo's puzzling through this, he turns around and his gloves are in fact burning.
right? Because he's told this to Anna, right? He's definitely told her, and she's helping him. She's leaving him breadcrumbs because she can't necessarily tell him what's going on, right? This is not his first run through. This is definitely not his first run through. That's my theory right now.
I'm writing your theory down so we can
Yes,
revisit it.
yes,
Okay.
yes. Okay, good. Let's keep it going.
So then Sebastian starts to freak out, or we keep calling him Sebastian, but Aiden starts to freak out. What does this mean? Like, he's like, I saw Anna die, so how is this note here? Anyway, like he's trying to rationalize it to himself. And he's talking out loud. He's like, so there's also, sorry, something that we kind of glossed over. So there's like this voice in the back of his head that gives him like advice and kind of, it's kind of presented like, your inner monologue, your internal monologue,
Right,
but usually our internal monologues like match our state in the moment. But
yeah,
Aiden's internal monologue is like sure and confident and tells him what to do, like kind of matter of factly, which is like an interesting break from norm. So he's having a conversation with his internal voice about like, you have so many questions, just like ask her when you meet him tonight or when you meet her tonight. What?
I got it.
What did you get?
Oh, I've definitely solved the book. I'll let you finish this part, and then
Okay.
I'll
So
solve it.
he's going back and forth. He's trying to rationalize it to himself. Like, how could Anna, or how could this note be here? Who would be able to know that like my gloves are burning? Oh, it's a raining day. Like it rains here all the time. It's not that much of a leap to assume that I would hang my gloves to dry if I got here. Blah blah blah. There's another line that I underlined, and it said, it says in the midst of this conversation, the cottage listens politely, but even to my ears, that reasoning's desperate. I just love the idea of the cottage listening politely, like this empty house. It's just very politely
Right,
listening to your madmen ramblings.
right.
Anyway, so he kind of collects himself and then returns to he leaves and heads back to the then heads
Anna.
back to the house. What was your little?
Okay, this is it,
You
right?
solved the book.
So I've solved the book. I've solved the book, everyone.
TBD.
This is this is Anna is the voice in his head. One. Two, this is like let me see. I don't know if you've played Assassin's Creed. Have you played Assassin's Creed? Okay. This is exactly that. He's being put into this world, right, to solve this murder. Right. Not just this is like one of these like this is sci-fi. I feel like this is more sci-fi than her horror. Like at some point we're gonna find out that this is like, constructed. Like this is all a construct. And Anna so the reason why the voice in the back of his head is so sure and just okay, you need to relax is because that's his handler. That's his telling him, hey, chill out, dude. First of all, you're talking too loud.
Is that how handlers talk to their folks? Chill.
No, probably not.
Chill.
But like,
I know you're surrounded by death and murder, but maybe chill.
Just relax. Am I anywhere close to it?
Why would I confirm or deny?
Never mind. But I
took notes though.
I know. I just know I've solved it. Okay. And I'm gonna be so mad if it's not it, but it's gonna be so good either way. Okay.
So in reality, what's gonna happen is that in like 50 pages, you're gonna forget that was your theory. So don't stick to it.
How did what when you were reading it the first time, did you have any theories?
That's a really good question. I wonder if James would remember more than I do.
Okay.
I mean, I think I had like a lot of theories like along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Not a really I did. I don't want to talk about what my theories were though.
Okay.
Because I don't know if I can talk about them in a way while being neutral on them.
It's fine. Yeah. Dang. Like, is this something we can talk about after this, or is this something you just don't?
We can talk about it when you've read the book.
Okay. That's fine. All right. Where are?
Okay. So he romps back to the house. He's musing about what does it mean that Anna left him a note because he thinks he saw her die. He then remembers like he needs to find the servant who found that note. Mm-hmm. He overhears some servants talking about Lady Helena, who is the matron of the Hardcastle family. And we find out that like no one's seen her in a little bit. Which is interesting. I feel like servant gossip is always interesting. Like,
yes.
Here's a general book reading tip. If you ever get to overhear servant conversation, pay very close attention to what the servants are talking about. Right. Yeah. Anyway, so he asks the servant some questions, and then they lead him to where Miss Evelyn is, and we meet our titular character, Evelyn Hardcastle, who is sitting in a parlor with a bunch of bored women playing a game of chess with a very fat man.
Can I say something? Like, so at this point in my read through, I'm just so stuck on Anna, that when I meet Evelyn, I'm just like, okay, cool. Can we move past this woman? And then I close the book.
Did you? Is that what that pause was?
And then I shut the book for a second, and I'm like, hold on.
That's a shame. I love Evelyn. Evelyn is such a great character.
No, it wasn't. I'm like, she is, but like, I'm like,
it's not what you wanted in the moment.
I'm like, let's get to the murdery parts. Like, let's get to solving this murder, right? And I'm stuck on Anna and who Anna is. I want to find out who she is, why she's still alive. I'm just really like enthralled by this character, non-character, right? That I still think I'm not really sure if she's real or not. I forget that the book is about the 7.5 deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, and I am crying to myself because I shut the book and I was like, okay, maybe I actually need to take a break because like and come back to this for a second. Because how could I forget what the title of the book is about? Or who is on the title of the book?
Yeah, it's Evelyn.
Yeah. So
It's Evelyn.
I'm just gonna throw that out there, confession.
Yeah. Um, so I will say one of the things that I really struggled with this book, which we get introduced to in this scene, and it will play a bigger part later. And this is just content warning wise, I'm not making a comment on the plot or anything. But I feel like the way that as phenomenal of a writer as Stuart Turton is, the way that he describes the guy that she's playing chess with, which I can't remember his name right now. It is what is his name? Sorry, let me scroll to the notable Cecil Ravencourt, I believe. He just like, he really wants you to know that this man is fat. And he also really wants you to know that this man's fatness is a reflection of his moral character. And that's just like straight up fat phobia. And I'm not a super big fan of that. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, because that was something that like really, it's probably my only like major critique of the book, is just the way that Ravencourt's fatness is dealt with is very like, it villainizes fatness, and that bothers me.
Right.
That's all.
He wants to pick, because I think it Ravencourt is not a good person. I think that's what he's trying to put.
Well, he doesn't have anything
across,
nice to say about the description of him,
but
right?
His description just goes in. Like,
Yeah.
Okay, we get it. He's like, he must squeezed into that seat and just on and on, like his 2 sizes too small suit. He's just going in.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, all right.
Yeah. Well, and it's also he like watches so the initial description is like, I can only imagine what contortions must have been necessary to persuade his enormous bulk behind the table. The chair's too small to him. He's a martyr to it. Sweat is gleaming. Like, it just goes on and on about how like physically uncomfortable this man is. Which, like, I promise you, Ravencourt is aware of how uncomfortable he is. Like, we don't need we don't need that like blow by blow. But then like we also have this interesting like, so Evelyn and Ravencourt are playing chess, and Evelyn like easily creams him. So like we were establishing that not only is he like physically gross, he's not that mentally smart, is like the intention of the scene, and I don't care for that. Anyway, it's I don't want to spend we don't need to dwell on it too much. I just want to acknowledge that, because if you like start reading this book because we're raving about it, and then like you're really sensitive to fat phobia, I don't want you to be caught off guard.
Yeah, that's the thing that happens.
Yeah. Okay. So after Evelyn and Ravencourt play their little chess game, and Evelyn totally creams him, he wanders off, and inevitably Evelyn and Aiden step out and go for a walk. She offers to bring him to Mr. Collins, which Mr. Collins is the doorman, because he would know who the maid was, the butler. Sorry, I keep calling him the doorman, but he's the butler.
He's the butler.
So she lets him know that Mr. Collins was assaulted last night, and so he's not in the main house, he's out in the gatehouse, and she can show him the way if he would like. And then we find out that Gregory Gold, who is an artist, is the man who beat the crap out of Mr. Collins.
Yes.
So they go on a walk, and they have this like very endearing conversation.
Yes. And to be honest, to be very fair, that is the part I loved everything about Evelyn and Sebastian. Like, I think this is the first time I liked Sebastian.
Same.
Moving through this is the first time I was like, you know what? I kind of feel for you, dude. Like, I have no memory of like who you are, what like. I kind of was feeling for him,
Yeah. Yeah, and Evelyn frames it in this like really sympathetic way that helped me like Sebastian, but it
Hmm.
also told us a lot about her, right? So she talks about how she's very envious of him because he can now recreate himself. He can pick and choose the characters that he sees and the people around him to create this new identity, and how she wishes she could do the same, right? So we get more sympathy for Sebastian, and we learn that she's miserable. She hates her life. She doesn't want to be here. She doesn't want to be the woman that everyone is perceiving her to be. Um,
Right.
Stuart Turton is very economical in his scenes. I feel like he in like a 2-page scene, he can tell you so many things about both of the characters involved, and I think that's fantastic.
Correct. I think this is also, was it also here? Was it sometime in the future where she actually tells um Sebastian, like, because we established in the beginning that she lives in France, and or yeah, France, and there's the why. Do we, is it established here? Is the why established here? Or is it
Um, I think well, so this seed leads to that, but we talk to Mr. or we see Mr. Collins before they have that conversation.
right? And I think
Um,
the best part about seeing Mr. Collins is when we're leading up to go see Mr. Collins, we see we first of all we get into this room, and there's a guy described as being hung.
it was one of my favorite scenes. I love Evelyn, and this is such like a good framing of like how whacked out her world is. So they're walking
Yes,
through this gatehouse trying to find the room that Mr. Collins is in, and she's not entirely sure which room that he's in. And so she like opens one of the doors. I'm trying to find the so funny. The blow by blow was so funny. She says, "Come on, let's try this one," she says, rapping lightly on a door to her left, pushing it open where there's no response. A tall fellow in a charcoal stained shirt is bound by his wrists and dangling from a hook on the ceiling, his feet only barely touching the floor. He's unconscious, a head full of dark hair, curly hair slumped against his chest, blood speckling his face. And Evelyn just says, "Nope, must be the other side." Her voice bland and unconcerned. Like
like,
she's just like, "Oh, didn't mean to find this."
yeah, like next, like, and then of course Sebastian is like, yo, are we just really about to walk past this? Like, this
Yeah.
is a thing that is happening. Like, why are we just get? And that was, oh no, don't worry about him. He assaulted someone. He assaulted
Yeah.
our butler, and my dad feels like this is the best punishment.
Yeah. So this is Gregory Gold, the artist.
And Sebastian, again, another part, another. This is again where I like Sebastian is like, no, well, I mean, I get that, but like, is this the best punishment for this
Yeah.
human being? And I think he tries to paint the fact that this is a person who has been like, yeah, I get that he assaulted someone, and Evelyn's like, okay, when you see who he assaulted, he beat this man an inch within his life.
Yeah, she's like very quick to defend her father's actions. Like it doesn't seem like she's particularly invested in it, but just
Mhm.
like, I know that this is the rationale my father is using, and I'm not going to question it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Which I think comes into play later when after they meet Mr. Collins.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, she tells him that, like a constable is on his way. There's nothing to do. Like, let's just leave Gregory. Oh, look, I found the right room. And then they move on.
Right. And then and then Sebastian's concerns like fade as soon as, oh,
Yeah.
the way, let's Anna, right? No, no, no. I'm
What?
saying his concerns fade away, and he's like, oh, back to like solving.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so then they go into the room, and like Mr. Collins is just looks awful. He's absolutely
Mhm.
awful. There's a maid sitting there with a large book. She can't be more than 23. Small enough to tuck into a pocket. What a great way to describe somebody as petite. Um,
Right.
anyway, she lets them know that he has been drugged, I think.
He's out of it. Yeah, yeah. He's
Oh, he just
yeah,
hasn't woken up.
yes.
Um,
And she's like, what do you mean? Yeah, well, you guys caused a racket coming up here, and he didn't
and he
even
didn't
say,
wake up.
yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so then we get another clue about who the maid was that brought him the note last night. And it's Madeline, who is Evelyn's maid, that she lent to the house because they were understaffed. And so then they're kind of off to find out where is Madeline so they can get more clues. I mean, they keep walking, and then this is where we have that conversation where we find out more about Evelyn and what's actually happening at the house.
And this part made my heart break. This was kind of like,
yeah, tell us why. Walk us through what we learned.
Okay, so what we learn is, which brother is it? Michael is the one who's alive, and I think it was it's Michael, Evelyn, and who's what's the third? What's the third?
Thomas.
Thomas. This is what we learn about. This is how we learn what happened to Thomas, and it's like, hey, my parents were out, I was in charge, and I technically didn't want to be in charge of the kids, so I was like, hey, if you just take care of yourselves and then go do what I do as a teenager, probably was a teenager. Somewhat. No.
She's 10 when he's murdered.
She's 10, right. As a 10-year-old, I'm trying to go play with my friends and do my own thing. I don't want to be in charge of the children. And I think she left them to go.
She set up like a treasure hunt.
Right. And he ends up at the lake, and what happened to him happened. Parents blamed her. Like, she's 10. Okay. She's 10 years old. I personally am like, oh yeah, she's 10. This is like not necessarily, it's not her fault, as a 10-year-old. And so, but this is old-timey, and old-timey parents weren't great parents all the time. So they blamed her 100% for it. She blamed herself. She was miserable. And that's why I say I think Michael is super aloof, because they send her off now, right? She's off in Paris or France. It's Paris, right?
Well, his aloofness is before that too, right? Like, she talks about in the months after Thomas's death, she's like super depressed. She's suicidal. Like, she's blaming herself, and like she's really cruel to Michael because she's so deep in her understandable depression, and he like just never stops being nice to her. Like, his 5-year-old self is just like loving on her and trying to get her to play and trying to distract her, and he never stops. So we learn that like Michael is this like silly, aloof character from the get-go, seemingly as a coping mechanism for all of the trauma around him.
Possibly. And I think she also says, this is one of the things that actually did help me in those months, is the fact that Michael just never like gave up.
Yeah, he never gave up on her.
Yeah. And so that she alludes to that. The next thing is, she's now in Paris, and they're like, okay, you have to come home. And she's like, well, I'm not going to come home. And then I think they threatened to take her off the will.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, yeah, whatever. And then the parents knowing the relationship she has with Michael, say, you know what? Forget you. We're going to take Michael off. And this is cruel, super cruel. And it comes into play later, because now she's defending if I was Sebastian, or rather if I was it's not Sebastian. If I was I'm like, wait, you were just defending your dad for doing something cruel, but here he is turning that around on you. Well, yeah. And this is why she's here. And she also explains that this, again, Sebastian / Aiden doesn't know what the event he's in, right? And she's like, yeah, my brother died 19 years ago
Tomorrow,
rather. So what do you think this masquerade really is? It's probably a way to...
And we learned that all of the guests, everyone who's in the house, was at the house 19 years ago when Thomas was murdered.
Correct. And
I remember when I read this for the first time and that piece of information was dropped, and I was like, why the 19th? Like, just sit on your depression for one more year and have a nice round 20-year anniversary. Like, what? 19?
Wait,
for some reason that really bothered me.
Oh, okay. I thought that's the question. But it was just okay.
No, it's just like, I get being morbid and like holding on to anniversaries and stuff, but like 19 is an ugly number.
Couldn't you
have waited for 20?
20, right? But yeah, so it's a whole thing. It's a whole masquerade designed to get her back, and who knows if it's to humiliate her. So it's very weird that she stuck up for her dad in that one scene, only for her, only for it to be turned around right back on her. So it's something she's just used to, I guess.
It's
the cruelty, Yeah, it's a
She
trauma.
just
So like
accepted it.
when she was defending her dad's possible over punishment of the guy, I guess that's one thing that yeah, that's one thing. So they she decides to go back to the house, right? Because
Wait,
she's
wait, wait.
gonna
There's one more piece of information. Oh, wait, sorry. You mean from Paris? Like she agrees to?
yes,
Yeah, sorry. I jumped ahead. Yeah, so she agrees to the concessions because she doesn't want Michael to get written out of the will.
right.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I'm done with my musings on. No, I just wanted to talk about this. This is a part that really broke my heart. I want to talk about.
Yeah, it is sad. It's super sad. So here let's really like paint the picture of the heartbreak, because Aiden is also surprised by this and says, "Are your parents really so spiteful?" I ask, shocked. "I feel as much as I did when that bird hit the window earlier this morning, a great swell of pity mingled with a sense of injustice at life's sudden cruelties." And Evelyn says, "My mother sent me a message this morning asking me to meet her by the lake," she says. "She never came, and I don't think she ever meant to. She just wanted me to stand out there where it happened, remembering." Does that answer your question? Brutal.
Just like ugh.
Yeah, brutal.
Okay. Yeah.
So this conversation has one more important piece of information, which is Evelyn lets slip that she thinks Sebastian has changed so much in the last 2 days. And he asks, "What do you mean?" And she's like, "Oh, never mind. I didn't mean to say anything, like, forget it." And he kind of presses the issue. And she says, like, "Are you, so like we met 2 days ago and I had like an impression of you. I don't think you want to know what that impression is." And he like really presses her and he gives some bad logic. He says like, "How do I know how to build a new identity if I don't know what my
Right.
previous
Right.
identity was?" And I was like, "You don't need to know
You
your
don't
previous
need
identity
to.
to build a new
Right.
one." Like, anyway, so she finally agrees and tells him that she knows that the original Sebastian's Bell is a dope dealer, and that's why he was invited to the party, probably originally and today, is so that the party attenders will have a supply of drugs to best enjoy their evening with. And this like rattles him to his core. Like he does not want to be that kind of man. Like that's not who he wants to be. And he's like appalled that this is who Sebastian Bell is. And that at that point, so they're waiting at a meadow for Madeline to walk back so that they can ask her about the note. And he just takes off. He's like, he's not going to wait for Madeline anymore. He has this like sinking feeling. He knows what's in that trunk in his room. He couldn't get a key to, and he takes off and he runs back to the house.
She's behind them. They go into the house together, or he goes into the room together. They go into the room. He's looking for a key. He's trying to find a key. He's jerking the
She stays behind. She doesn't follow him.
Who gave him the hammer?
Oh, no. You're right. I'm wrong.
Yeah. So she hands him I think she's like, okay, I'll be right back. Turns around. She comes back with a hammer. He smashes the lock down. He opens it. And the only thing in there is a chess piece. So is it Did I say what piece it was?
It's a bishop.
It's a bishop. And I think Anna is on there. Anna's written on there on the and then
no, I think sorry,
that's good.
No, he finds the chess piece. There's nothing there. It's just the chess piece, and he stays. He doesn't go down to the ball. He's like, I'm just gonna hunker down. All right, so the drugs are gone. He finds the bishop.
In the dark corner is a solitary chess piece with Anna's name carved on the base.
Yeah, there you go. So
then Evelyn goes, I think it's time you tell me more about this. Like something else is going on, and I need to know. Yeah, and I thought that was a good way to end that chapter. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's fine. I'm just trying to make sure I get the timeline before I say what happens next. Oh, so Evelyn, okay, so they do that. He decides to forego the party. He's chilling in the room. He then gets ready and leaves to meet Anna at the mausoleum at 10:20. Evelyn slips out to go with him. She doesn't have a lot of time. She has to make it back before the evening speeches, but she'll step out with him initially, and they're waiting in the dark forest, and it's spooky, and Anna doesn't show up. And they kind of wait outside for a while and eventually decide to give up. And then when he comes back to his room, they like make a plan. He's going to go find Daniel again. He needs to go find the maid. But they're giving up on waiting for Anna. And when he gets back to his room, there's a box sitting on his bed wrapped in a red ribbon. He opens the box. And stuffed inside is a dead rabbit with a carving knife stabbed through its body. Blood has congealed at the bottom, staining its fur and almost obscuring the note pinned to its ear. And the note says, "From your friend, the footman." And then Black swims up into his eyes, and a second later, he faints. And that is where day one ends.
Right.
So that threat of the plague doctor has come full circle.
Yep.
We now have a direct action on behalf of the footman. What did you think when you read that part about the bunny in the note?
I think okay. So when I read it, right, this is where I'm like, okay, great. Let's get to the horror. I was like ready. I don't know why, because like, okay, I'm like, it's turning up now, right? Okay, we don't Anna. Then this is where I solidified my Anna's not theory. This is where I was like, okay, we're turning up now. Like we need to find out what's going to happen next, right? Sebastian is going to wake up from his little pass out because he's a coward. He passed out. I'm like, this is also when I started thinking that someone in the party is a footman. So I'm like, we're going to find who the footman is, right? And up to this point, I'm still 100% certain that the murder that we're trying to solve is Anna's. But Anna's not real. And then I shut the book and I was like, wait, Evelyn Hardcastle. So someone is gonna kill Evelyn at some point.
Right. The murder we're solving is Evelyn's.
Right. I'm like, oh my goodness, how am I like, no, seriously, I was so upset. Like, how did I miss that the entire time? Like, oh great. But no, the book does so well to paint this Anna character to you that, well, for me per se, I forgot that Evelyn is a major player, in this.
Yeah. So we only have a couple more pages that we read through. And we wake up on day 2. And he's confused. There's like a banging on the door. He doesn't understand what's happening. He gets up to open it, and then he realizes that he's staring at Sebastian Bell because he's woken up as the butler. And so this is where you realize, even though we read it on the back 1,000 times, it's Quantum Leap style. This is Groundhog's Day. And so we relive that interaction between Sebastian Bell and the doorman and Daniel that happened at the beginning of day 1 when he gets back to the castle. Yeah.
And like I said, this is the best part to me because I'm like, yo, because it's you all, again, reading the back of the book and coming here, you almost forget. I know you don't almost forget. I did forget that.
I also same. I 100% forgot that we were going to jump between 8 people.
Right, and so I'm like, oh my god, like what is happening here? This is the sci-fi part, right?
We get the very brief description or recounting of what actually happens to Mr. Collins. So after Sebastian and Daniel go upstairs, Aiden as the butler, Mr. Collins, gets taken into the kitchen. He's treated very nicely. It's kind of established that Mr. Collins has episodes, and so that the servant staff know to look out for him. And if he's having an episode, they take him to the kitchen, and the cook gives him a cup of tea and like is very nice to him. And he's like kind of, realizing everything that's happening. And so he tries to go upstairs to confront Daniel and Sebastian. And along the way, he bumps into Gregory Gold, who then beats the shit out of him. And that's how Mr. Collins ends up the way that Mr. Collins ended up from Sebastian's perspective. And that's where we stopped. That's with him passing out, with Mr. Collins passing out after
he's passing
beating him
out.
up. He passes out. And that's
Oh
as far as we
man.
read. So that was a really long
Right.
summary. We could probably shore that up for the next time.
Right, right. Even though I think we have more pages in the next one, though, like
Yeah.
a
So
lot more.
I have three questions, and we've talked about the second one a lot, but I want to go through these questions every up and through the end, where we'll
Okay.
evaluate your questions along the way. So the question one is, what do you know? The second question is, what do you suspect? And the third question is, what questions do you have? And I know there are a million questions, so kind of like, what are the most pressing questions that you have? So I want to start with, what do you know? Like, what are you confident? What do you know?
Well, what I know for sure is Daniel did it. Like Daniel did it. Like
And when you say it, what do you mean? What did
he's
Daniel do?
okay. So if this is a who done it, right? Because like I feel like this is a who done it, quantum leap, all of that makes into this
This is like
hodgepodge.
Clue on steroids.
Right. Daniel is it. Like he's the murderer. He's definitely the
Okay.
murderer. Um, I know for a fact Anna's not real. uh, and so Daniel did it. Anna's not real. And yeah, that's really what I know for a fact. That's really what I
Okay.
know for sure. Those are the two most solid things I'm on.
Okay. What do you suspect? Let me summarize for you what I've taken notes of what you suspect so far. The woman in the beginning is Evelyn, not Anna.
Yes.
Daniel is our guy, which you've bumped up into the what do you know. Anna is not real. She's leaving him breadcrumbs. This is not his first run through. Anna is the voice in his head, and that this is Assassin's Creed style, where he's been put into this world to solve the murder, and everything is constructed. Do you have any other suspicions, predictions?
No, no.
Okay. What are your topmost questions?
Okay, so okay, hear me out.
I'm hearing.
Hear me out. Is Anna real? Like, is Anna real? Like, I know she's not real. Like, I don't know if I'm looking at your reactions trying to gauge something because you're not really giving anything. Your poker face is amazing, by the way.
No, because I'm a good friend, and good friends don't spoil books.
You are not giving anything away, and I'm really, really hoping. Like, I'm looking at you super intensely. But no, is Anna real? Anna is, and I think the real question is, how many times has Aiden done this? Like, is this the first? But is this something like he's done over and over again, like Westworld, right? Like that. Is this something like he comes back to like every once in a while too? And what is the plague doctor's deal? I know he said he's bored.
Do you remember when you sent in the chat the plague doctor is not real? We're like, what does that mean?
Oh yeah. Because okay, so earlier I said in the chat that the plague doctor is not real because when the thing happened with the plague doctor, I was like, there's no like. First of all, he disappeared. Okay, like he's not Batman. He's not a ninja. Like, come on. He just up and disappeared. Okay, yeah, he's definitely not real. Like he's not a real entity. And I I'm still staying there. He's not real. He's not real. The other question, like, but what is his what is his purpose in all of this, right? And I think that's an important question when you get here because he is a huge character. Like even in that one scene he is right, the message he drops and all of that. One of the message he drops comes back around full circle at the end of our first read. So what is his deal? Like now I feel like now that established him as a huge character. So what is your deal, bro? Like what you got going on? I think the other question is, uh, uh, if Daniel didn't do it, then who did? Right? See, I hate that I'm going
The
back
cheap
and forth on
question.
these things that I know. Right? It is a cheap question, but I am going back and forth because this. I feel like in things like this, in writing like this, right? There's always a point. There's always a character that you just kind of know that the writer just pointing you like is trying to point. It's misdirection. Daniel just feels like a character that did it. But then if he didn't, if it's not him, then who?
Uh-huh.
The significance of the compass from the first, like the first 7 chapters. What's that about? Like, why is that a thing that we went back to more than once in this? In I almost said in this episode. In this, it feels like an episode, but like, yeah. So those are the questions I have, honestly. I think the biggest one for me is, what is the Plague Doctor's deal? Like, what is his, and who's the footman? Like, who's
And
that?
who's the footman?
Yes, yes. What is his deal too?
I'm not going to answer any of those questions, but I
Oh
am
no,
going
you're
to let you
not.
know that
I
all
know.
of those questions are answered.
Wait, they've been answered already? Oh, you're
I'm
saying
not going to tell you what the answers are. I'm letting you know that these are, sometimes you read a book and you're like, what is this thing? And it's never explained in the narrative.
Mhm.
All of these things are explained.
Oh, okay. So I'm gonna get to it. Okay,
You are going to get concrete answers to all of these questions.
fantastic. So there you go. And I feel like anything else at this point will be a little spoilery. So I'm gonna not say anything. I'm gonna
I
shut
mean,
my mouth up.
you're not spoiling it for me.
I know, but it's not for you. It's for the people who want to read it. Like, we had
That we
someone
told not to watch this until they've
right.
read
No,
it.
no, we had someone watch up to a minute and like for a long time and drop out. It's
That's
like,
so funny. Okay.
right. So
Okay.
yeah. So just in case, like, crap, they're really telling a lot about the first 7 chapters. I need to go. Bye. Like, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so for our next episode, the way that James is the one who came up with this breakdown, and we really wanted to stop at page 72 because that's where like the mechanism of the plot becomes evident, and so we just wanted to like capture that moment of realizing what the rest of the book is maybe going to look like. And so from here we're going to catch up as if we were reading the book in 4 equal parts. So that's why the second chunk is so much larger than the following one. So we'll get up to page 226, and then from there it'll be 115 pages each time, until the end. So
something I didn't say in the chat, but like, James's handwriting is nice.
that's my handwriting. Thank you.
Oh, your handwriting is nice. I was like, wow, James's handwriting is so nice, but it's yours.
James's handwriting, I love my husband. It's chicken scratch.
Okay, great. Because I know I would never. First of all, if I wrote this, I wouldn't show this. The only reason why I keep showing this image is because it's so good. So like, I'm gonna keep showing this. But yeah, thank you so much, Stephanie. Glad to have you back. So I'm gonna be back for 3 more episodes. So thank you for taking time out of your Sunday to do this with me. And thank you for suggesting the book. Thank you for suggesting the book. I really appreciate it. We will catch you guys next week on episode 2 of our, what was it again?
Book club.
Book club.